Hello learners. Today we will be discussing about impact of climate change on livestock. Food and Agricultural Organization estimated that 7,516 million metric tons per year of carbon dioxide equivalent or 18% of annual worldwide or global greenhouse gas emissions because of cattle population, buffalo, sheep, goats, camel, horses, pigs and poultry. However, for more than 1.2 billion people, livestock is a primary source of food, contributing for their nutritional and livelihood security. Scientific studies confirm that greenhouse gases and global warming are negatively impacting or affecting the livestock in terms of feed intake, health, reproduction and even the production of the meat, the poultry and so on and so forth. So, livestock both contributes to as well as gets affected by climate change. Secondly, we will be discussing about the linkages between livestock and global warming. Thirdly, we will be discussing about the contributions of livestock to greenhouse gas generation. And lastly, we will be discussing about the measures for mitigation of livestock's threat to the environment. So, let us see the importance of livestock sector, how much it is contributing to the national economy. India's livestock sector is one of the largest in the world with 56.7% of world's buffalo, 12.5% of cattle, 20.4% of small ruminant animals, 2.4% of camel, 1.4% of equine population and 1.5% of pigs. In terms of a number, India had 512 million livestock and about 729 million poultry in the year 2012. The livestock sector grew at an annual rate of 3.6% during the first decade of this century. The growth in livestock sector remained about 1.5 times more than the crop sector, which implies its critical and valuable role in cushioning agricultural growth. The overall contribution of the livestock sector to India's GDP, gross domestic product, is nearly 4.11%, which is about around 21% of agricultural GDP. Indeed, significant contribution by the livestock sector to the agriculture as a whole. Now, let us see the factors driving or contributing the livestock revolution and what are the reasons for the increase in demand for livestock products. The first and foremost reason, the factor is the human population growth. The second important factor is the increased urbanization, industrialization activity. The third important factor is the increasing purchasing power parity, rising incomes, standard of living and also changing food preferences from vegetarian food to the non-vegetarian food. So, that is the third factor. The next factor is the lot of improvement or kind of a enhancement of trade in both inputs and outputs due to globalization, because in that reason, that is one of the reason why that is contributing for the growth of livestock. Now, let us see the production system, livestock production system in India. When you talk about the livestock production system in India, it can be classified or categorized into two important systems. One is the smallholder production system, the other one is the commercial production system. As far as the smallholder production, it supports the millions of people, family, it supports their livelihood, household food security and it also contributes to the rural food security. The second system is the commercial production or industrial production that supports the food supply system and also it provides employment to huge population, both the producers and others who are related with this the processing sector, distribution sector, the marketing and support services. As regards the smallholders production system, India has the largest number of families who are dependent on livestock rearing to supplement their family income, and also this livestock system provides gainful employment in rural areas, particularly the landless laborers, the small and marginal farmers. You must note at this point that the distribution of livestock is much more equitable compared to that of land resource. The livestock contributed about 16% of the income of the small farm households. It is a significant amount. It means that how much the small farm households are dependent on livestock for their income, for their livelihood, and for other meeting their basic day-to-day needs. The growth in livestock sector is definitely demand driven, and it is very inclusive, and it is more of pro-poor in nature, because more of the marginal farmers and the small farmers are dependent on livestock for income generation. Scientific research showed that the livestock rearing has positive impact on equity in terms of income, employment, and also poverty alleviation or poverty reduction in rural areas. The observed pattern of growth in crossbred dairy cows, improved breeds of buffalo, sheep, pigs and poultry indicates a kind of a shift towards economically more efficient species. Okay. That is a significant shift that is contributing a lot of momentum to the commercial production system, industrial production system. So the livestock sector in India is both expanding and adapting to emerging economic changes or forces, social changes also, and even the technological forces also. So a lot of changes is happening in the livestock sector, and definitely it is for the positive. It's having a positive connotation, consequences as well. It is estimated that 80% of growth in the livestock sector comes from the industrial production system, this commercial production system. That is a significant thing we need to take into account. In a way, the livestock sector is moving towards kind of a industrial mode of production, and definitely it will have a positive as well as the negative repercussions on the environment. Particularly today we are discussing about the climate change, so that also has to be taken into account before going into the mitigation, or before going into the other aspects of livestock sector. So now let us discuss about the advantages or benefits of maintaining or rearing a livestock at at farmland, and so definitely in every household, a rural household, if you see, it is very much a part and parcel of their day-to-day activity. So rearing the livestock. So the first benefit is this particular livestock definitely it helps in sustaining small scale farming or family farming indeed. So when I say how it is sustaining, the first and foremost important thing is that it provides a lot of benefits to the farmers. In addition, the livestock provides a lot of manure to the croplands, and that is a significant part of this integrated farming system, and other kind of how well you are plowing back the nutrients or the manures into the soil. The second important aspect as far as the sustaining the small scale farming is concerned, it is even the buffalo, it can be used for other farm operations also, even for the transporting the farm produce to the markets, and in most of the activities, agricultural activities, the farm animal that is contributing significantly to the farmers, particularly the family farming, at the level of family farming. The second important benefit is this livestock provides kind of additional or subsidiary means of income generation, or it can also provide a lot of saving opportunities. The farmers can save enough from the livestock management, and because the people can sell their produce like milk, eggs, manure. Even the manure is also sold. And definitely it is also carrying a lot of income generating activity as far as the small scale farm holding is concerned. And if you and at times maintaining the livestock also provide employment opportunities also, because they can have their lean period, they can work with the livestock, they can maintain, they can rear, and they can produce a lot of produce, livestock produce, and through that way definitely they can act as a insurance kind of thing, or it can definitely improve their purchasing power, or the manageability at the family level, how they manage the resources. Everything depends on the diversifying the agricultural activity. Diversifying means, that includes the along with the cropping activity, the livestock activity also. Definitely it is very much part of the farming activity. The third important significance of livestock management is the security aspect, that is food and nutrition security, because the farmers, the families can they consume milk, other meat, even egg and other kind of products, and this is a very important aspect, because that provides a lot of household security, household food security. So definitely it is a very, very significant advantages of maintaining livestock at the farm. The next important aspect is, I was just talking about the insurance, that in fact if you look at it, if you maintain the livestock, it definitely protects the farmers against the shocks, and that is very common to the normal rural population. When I say rural population, because their dependency on agriculture is much more, and since agriculture is a climate sensitive enterprises, they are very much prone or vulnerable to extremes of the climatic conditions like drought, flood. When the disease that can definitely can at times can cause havoc to the food crops. Yeah, and also the farmers, they are also very prone or vulnerable to the distortions or kind of a market fluctuations, price fluctuations that can definitely cause a lot of harm to the farm produce, because they will not be getting the right price for their produce, and that also can kind of result in a lot of problems to the farmers. So under that circumstances, the maintaining the livestock can help them to improve their income, and also help them to manage their day-to-day activities. That's the significant aspect of maintaining the livestock. And definitely when the rural poor, they are facing a lot of problems, they will be tempted, or they will be definitely pushed for migrating to the urban areas and other areas for looking for greener pastures. But if you maintain a livestock, whether it's a cattle or the small ruminants, monogastric animals, definitely it can give a lot of protection against any kind of odds, any kind of eventualities, negative eventualities. So that is a significant aspect of maintaining the livestock. Now let us discuss about the linkage between livestock and global warming. What kind of interaction that is existing between the livestock and global warming? When you talk about global warming, the main reasons for global warming is the increase in greenhouse gases. That can be obviously because of the going for industrial activity or fossil fuel consumption. The second important cause for global warming is overexploitation of the natural resources. So as regards the greenhouse gases, the important greenhouse gases are, we have discussed in the earlier sessions, that is carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide and hydrofluorocarbons. So the major volume of carbon dioxide, that's a significant greenhouse gas, released into the atmosphere is caused by fossil fuel combustion. As regards the methane emission, that that is because of human and also natural processes also, that also can release a lot of methane into the atmosphere. About 60% of methane is emitted through human related activities like fossil fuel production, enteric fermentation in case of ruminants, or lowland rice cultivation, biomass burning also, and manure and waste management. Improper manure and waste management practices also can result in methane emission. Methane is also a natural release. As I said, it's also naturally also released into the atmosphere due to biological activities. In case of wetlands, natural biological process also can release methane into the atmosphere, and in regions like freshwater bodies, and even in certain organisms like termites and wildfire, that are also responsible at times to release more of methane into the atmosphere. Out of the total methane emitted, livestock also contributes about 37%. It almost equivalent to 80 million tons per annum. It's a significant amount. And as far as the methane is concerned, 37%, it's a huge amount. So we can say categorically that livestock also is responsible for releasing more of methane into the atmosphere. So there is a lot of measures that can be taken in the livestock sector so that the methane emission can be reduced. So on an average, if you look at it, each adult cow emits about 80 to 100 kg of methane in a year. So the methane emissions due to enteric fermentation, that's what the prime reason in ruminants it is released. It is basically dependent on the type of feed, the level of intake, feed intake also, the retention time in the rumen, and also the type of microbes present in the rumen. So these all four parameters, four factors will decide how much methane is emitted into the atmosphere through enteric fermentation. Then as far as the other gas is concerned, nitrous oxide, it is released from the livestock activity also, particularly the the manure management, mismanagement, and also industries. But today's context, if you look at it, in today's presentation, if you look at it, nitrous oxide is also released from the livestock sector through improper management of the cattle manure. Now let us discuss about the impacts of livestock on environment. Because the livestock also demands huge amount of fodder and feed, and in that case, uncontrolled, if it is not properly managed, the grazing activity, if it is not properly managed, that can also lead to problems like soil erosion, because when the vegetation is denuded, if it is removed, and that can aggravate the condition, that can promote soil erosion. So that is the most significant impact of livestock on environment. The second important impact is, as we know, that the ruminants also releases methane and carbon dioxide through enteric fermentation. So that is the second impact. The third impact is the manure, the livestock dung. That improper management of it is also can release methane and nitrous oxide. That is basically because of an anaerobic decomposition process. So these are all the things as far as the impacts of livestock on environment is concerned. So now let us see the impact of global warming on livestock. That is a very important thing, because when you look at the linkages, it is having the livestock is also impacting the environment, and on the other hand, the global warming or climate change also can have a potentially negative impact on the livestock. Because the climate change, it affects impacts the economic viability of the livestock production systems, economic viability. So the changes in the crop availability, quality due to global warming also affect the animal production through changes in the feed supplies. That is the most direct impact. When you look at the major impacts, major impacts of the increase in the surface air temperature or ambient temperature on livestock, there are few impacts are there. The reduction in voluntary feed intake, that is the most important impact. The second impact is because definitely the feed intake, if it is reduced, it can lead to reduced weight gains, because the weight gain also will be drastically reduced because of the increase in air temperature, surface air temperature. The third important impact is the reduced resistance to diseases. That is also kind of along with the other feed intake and other physiological processes, this reduced resistance also very, very significant impact, and that also can have an effect on the production, because that can reduce naturally the consumption rate. That will, because of that thing also, the production, the milk production can be decreased, and it also definitely lead to the reduction in the meat, and in case of poultry it will be reduction in the egg production. So the projected expected changes in the climate or climate change will markedly reduce the milk yield, meat yield and egg production at the global level. So, the projected economic losses resulting from the temperature induced reductions in the livestock products definitely warrants or calls for a suitable adaptation and mitigation strategies. So, now let us discuss the ways or measures to reduce the greenhouse gases emitted by the livestock sector. So, let us first look at the global level, then we will start discussing at the Indian context. So, what are the ways, what are the measures that we can adopt that can be used as an intervention so that the greenhouse gases emission from the livestock can be reduced? The first and foremost measure is reducing the consumption of livestock foods. Consumption also, along with that demand for the livestock products in the developed countries particularly. So, when you reduce the high level of consumption of livestock foods in the developed world, that will have a drastic effect on a positive effect on the the environment. Both in the rich and the poor countries, it will have a positive effect. So, the first and foremost important aspect or the measure is to reduce the consumption and also the demand for the livestock products in the developed countries. The second important thing is we can improve the diet of the ruminants in the developing countries, because the livestock in the developing countries, they lack the quality diets, and when you provide with better quality diets, particularly in the developing countries, that can increase their the feed conversion efficiencies also, and that will reduce the amount of methane generated in the process of producing the meat or a milk. So, that is a very important aspect that is to be taken into account. So, we have to improve the diet of the ruminants, particularly in the developing countries. That can be can be possible. For instance, if you see, the farmers can improve the diets of the livestock by better managing their grazing lands, or even the farmers can supplement the grass diet, because cereal it's a carbohydrate rich diet with certain protein rich diet like grain crop residues also can be provided. So, that can also improve the diet of the ruminants. Then for another example is, very common example is that we can provide the supplements, the farmers can provide supplements to the ruminants like feed additives that can manipulate the microorganisms living in the rumen, that will quicken the enteric fermentation process and thereby reduce or mitigate the greenhouse gas emissions. So, these are all the two important things, and the third important thing is that the farmers in the developing countries can be provided with the quality or high yielding breeds, because that will also help the farmers in the developing countries in particular. So, in other words, if you look at it, the replacing the low producing local animals, particularly in the developing world, with the fewer better fed animals, which is efficient or as far as the productive efficiency is concerned is much higher, that will definitely reduce the total emissions while maintaining the livestock yields. That is the most important aspect. So, helping the farmers in the developing countries by to maintain high yielding breeds. Next measure is we can match the livestock species. We can have the livestock species, the livestock species to an environment, just a kind of a match. There should not be any mismatch. If there is a match, definitely there will be increase in the efficiency, productive efficiency will be much higher. So, this could reduce the animal productivity levels greatly. The next one is that, so in certain pockets, that will also reduce the nitrous oxide emissions from the menus. The next measure is we can provide incentives to adopt mitigation strategies, particularly for the poor communities. The strategies can be like the smart and equitable incentive systems, or even the reforming the legislations of the policies, livestock and agriculture policies in certain countries also can help to minimize the greenhouse gas emissions, because that will have a positive effect on the communities poor communities who are dependent on the livestock population. And related thing is that we can provide a lot of techniques. The farmers can use a lot of techniques so that they will have facilities for monitoring the carbon stocks, and they appropriate. It will be very appropriate for them, because definitely when they can reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, there will be a lot of other benefits for the farmers, because that in a way community can be provided with a lot of incentives. That's a key point actually. So that will have a definitely a great momentum for the smallholders or the poor communities to go for the much higher efficient breeds, and at the same time the efficiency will, since it is very high, definitely the greenhouse gas emissions from any unit product of any meat or egg, that will be reduced. Now since we have discussed at the global level, we will discuss about the Indian context. Indian context, what are the possible interventions? The first important intervention is the balanced feeding. Through proper feed selection, supplementation and balancing of various ingredients, feed ingredients, it is possible to maximize the feed conversion. That is the basic thing, feed conversion into microbial biomass, and basically it is a short chain amino acids. So that will also help the livestock, and the productivity efficiency indirectly it is increased, and that will reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. The next one is, the related one is that improving the feed quality, because that is a major thing, because in Indian context if you look at it, the majority of the livestock are low productive, and they are undernourished, and even they are surviving on the open grazing or a poor quality diet, high fiber roughages. So these animals release more methane than high yielding animals. So in that case what happened, through proper feed quality, improving the feed quality, what definitely the GHG emissions can be reduced, and very simple techniques are there. Even you can go chopping even of the fodder, that's a very simple technique, and we can go for that steam treatment of sugarcane bagasse. That is the second important technique that can be used, that can improve the feed quality. The third important thing is that improving the health status of the animals. So because animals suffering from diseases also release more of methane compared to the healthy animals. So regular preventive and timely curative veterinary health care will help to reduce the emissions of greenhouse gases. And we can adopt or use more of efficient microorganisms also, because there is enough scope to identify different species and strains also, microorganisms present in the rumen, which are efficient converters of the feed into amino acids and microbial biomass. So such microorganisms, if introduced into the rumen, can improve the digestion in ruminants. We can use the methane absorbing microbes. These methane absorbing microbes have the capacity to absorb the methane, and it can convert it into other products. Such methane absorbing anaerobic microorganisms can be incorporated into the rumen flora, that can reduce the methane emissions, and that is a significant thing. So we can use this methane absorbing microbes also. And next important intervention is the manure management. Some better management of farmyard manure and compost pits can also reduce emission of methane into the atmosphere to a great extent. And next important intervention as far as our country is concerned, is a breed improvement. Generally high productive animals are fed with superior quality balanced ration. So in that case what happened, the methane production is also reduced. So livestock breed improvement can be promoted to produce high quality progeny which are stall fed and nurtured well. So breed improvement is a very important exercise or intervention as far as Indian context is concerned. And next intervention is the production of superior quality forages also, because the forage also is a very important thing. If you produce good quality produce, the forage or feed, that can have a positive forward impact on the livestock, and that can be possible. You can by adopting suitable measures, soil water conservation measures or watershed management practices also. In the open lands also we can go for good crops, forage crops. So definitely that can produce and that can give rise to quality forage crops. Through efficient roof water harvesting and other techniques, as I said about the soil water conservation, contour cultivation, also the tree based farming, there are many methods are there. So, that can be adopted to generate more of quality feed or quality forage. So, that will be definitely have a very positive impact on the health of the livestock population. And that is the significant aspect that we need to take into account. So, if it is all the interventions, it is adopted holistically, definitely can have a positive impact, or it can definitely help to mitigate the greenhouse gases emission from the livestock. So, to sum up, we have discussed about the livestock sector's contribution to the global security, the food and nutrition security and livelihood security. We have discussed the linkages between the livestock and global warming also. And thirdly, we have discussed about the contributions of livestock to the GHG emissions. And lastly, we discussed about the measures for mitigation of livestock's, the greenhouse gas emissions threat to the environment. Thank you very much.